Senator King. Senator Graham.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just got off the phone to General Dunford about a major issue affecting our forces in Afghanistan. If I could, I'd like to read his statement and explain the issue a bit and not have it taken out of my time if that's possible.
Let's take this step at a time. Why don't
okay. Well,
see if there's any objection. I don't, but there may be others waiting.
Well, basically, let me just read the statement from General Dunford. This is just given to me just about 5 minutes ago. United States Forces Afghanistan has learned that 65 dangerous individuals from a group of 88 detainees under dispute have been ordered released from the Afghan National Detention Facility at Parwan. The U.S. on several occasions provided extensive information and evidence on each of the 88 detainees to the Afghan Review Board, the Afghan National Director of Security, and Attorney General's Office. This release violates agreements between the U.S. and Afghanistan. We have made clear our judgment that these individuals should be prosecuted under Afghan law. We requested that cases be carefully reviewed, but the evidence against them was never seriously considered, including the Attorney General, given the short time since the decision was made to transfer these cases to the Afghan legal system. The release of 65 detainees is a legitimate force protection concern for the lives of both coalition troops and Afghan national security forces. The primary weapon of choice for these individuals is the IED, widely recognized as the primary cause of civilian casualties in Afghanistan. The release of these detainees is a major step backward for the rule of law in Afghanistan. Some previously released individuals have already returned to the fight, and this subsequent release will allow dangerous insurgents back to Afghan cities and villages. I just want to lend my support to this statement, Mr. Chairman. I've been working on this issue for quite a while. 88 detainees are the subject of this dispute. Our forces have evaluated these people as very dangerous to the Afghan people and to coalition forces. We've only requested that they go through the Afghan legal system. President Karzai has basically sidestepped his own rule of law. He's ordered the Attorney General to take these files over and the immediate release of 65 detainees without ever going through the Afghan legal system, which has had about a 70% conviction rate. We just lost 2 members of the reserve of the unit I work with as a reservist who are providing mentoring at the main prison in Afghanistan. I will be introducing a resolution condemning this action by President Karzai. I will be urging my colleagues to cut all developmental aid off to Afghanistan as a response until after the next election. And I just want my colleagues to know that General Dunford has done a wonderful job trying to protect our forces, and he finds this release an offense to those who have fought to detain these people and an affront to those who have died at their hands. Of the 88 individuals in question, over 60 coalition forces have died as a result of the action of these 88. And I consider this a major step backward in our relationship. I don't know what I would tell a member of a coalition force that was killed by one of these 65, if that did happen, and I hope and pray it does not, but the likelihood is great. And I would end with this thought. President Karzai, in my view, is single-handedly destroying this relationship. That his erratic behavior, that his outrageous statements you mentioned, Mr. Chairman, are doing great damage, and I want the people of Afghanistan to know that I yearn for a supportive relationship, political, militarily, and economically, but actions like this make it very hard for an American politician to do business as usual in Afghanistan. And General Flynn, you were over there dealing with this issue when I saw you in your last tour, and I just want to let the folks at 435 who are in charge of maintaining security of these detainees and all the people who are in charge of catching these guys, that this is an affront to them and their work effort, and it will not go unnoticed by the Congress. So I look forward to developing a bipartisan plan to push back as hard as possible. And the release is supposed to happen Thursday.
Thank you for bird-dogging this issue.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Now, back to the topic at hand. Director Clapper, General Flynn, do we have the legal authority under the AUMF to initiate strikes against al-Nusra in Syria and Ansar al-Sharia in Libya?
Sir, you're getting into a legal area here that I would want to ask about. I don't want to give an unequivocal answer to that.
But I just want to reassert what you've told this committee and the nation last week and this week, that the growing presence of al-Nusra, a safe haven in Syria now attached to Iraq, is presenting a direct threat to the homeland. Is that still your estimate?
Well, it's a little more nascent than that, but I think if I had to have a yes or no answer to that, I'd say yes.
Okay. Well, if the testimony, General Flynn, do you agree with that?
I think without some type of what I would just describe as CT pressure, we are looking at a growing sanctuary for terrorist groups to thrive from.
And they have as a desire to drive us out of the Mideast, is that correct? These groups.
Absolutely. They would like to have their own Islamic emirate.
So whether it's a core al-Qaeda or an al-Qaeda affiliate, the goal is the same, no matter what the name may be, is to drive the United States out of the Mideast and create an Islamic caliphate throughout the region. Is that the goal of all these organizations? And is yes?
Yes.
Okay. And we have been, attempts against the homeland have been generated by organizations other than core al-Qaeda. Is that correct?
Yes, that's the case.
Okay. Now you talk about the perfect storm: sequestration, diminished NSA capability, an emboldened enemy, a region on fire. Is that a fair summary of what you think the perfect storm may be?
Yes, sir.
Of those things that we control, seems like budgeting is one of the things we can control here in Congress. Do you agree with that, both of you?
Yes, sir.
Can you give me a good reason why the United States Congress would be diminishing your ability to defend this nation given the threats you've described?
I hate to go where angels fear to tread here, and certainly not going to be critical of Congress. But we do the best we can with the resources we're given.
Well, let's put it this way. If sequestration is fully implemented in year 10, how much more risk will we assume in terms of a nation?
Well, substantial. I can't quantify that, but every year we cut resources and we have less capacity and less capability. We are, by definition, assuming more risk.
You agree with that, General Flynn?
I absolutely agree with that.
Is the word substantial a good word, or should it be stronger?
I think substantial is a good adjective.
You agree with that, General Flynn?
I do.
Okay. Now, when it comes to the Russians, this recent release of a conversation between one of our diplomats, two of our diplomats, do you think the Russians intercepted that phone call?
Well, we don't know. They would certainly be on the potential list of suspects.
Is it fair to say the Russians are probably spying on our diplomats?
I think that's a fair assumption, yes, sir.
Okay. Let's go to Iran. If the final agreement reached between the United States and all the parties in question allows the Iranians an enrichment capability so they continue to enrich uranium, what's the likelihood that Sunni Arab nations would want the same kind of enrichment capability?
I think that's certainly a possibility. I don't know. It would be an individual case-by-case judgment, but that's certainly a possibility.
Well, I just got back from a Munich Security Conference, and every Sunni Arab leader I talked to said we would ask for the same thing they have. We told the United Arab Emirates that you can have a nuclear power program, but you can't enrich. Are you familiar with that?
Sorry, sir?
We told the United Arab Emirates that we would support a peaceful nuclear power plan, power program, but we denied them the ability to enrich uranium. Are you familiar with that?
I am not.
Okay. Well, we just told one of our best allies they can't enrich. If you had to list an order of the countries that you fear having a nuclear weapon, where would you put Iran?
Pretty high.
Do you agree with me? Whatever nuclear capability they possess could lead to an arms race in the Mideast?
Well, sir, I think it would be very dependent on safeguards and the limitations of their program. That's kind of a hypothetical question.
Have you talked to any Sunni Arab nations about whether or not they would claim the right to enrich if we give it to Iran? Have you talked to any Sunni Arab leaders about whether or not their nation would claim a right to enrich uranium if the Iranians were given that?
I have not had such a discussion.
Could you please have that conversation and report back to us in some appropriate form?
Senator Graham, I think, was the answer yes to that?
He said no.
I have not had the conversation, Senator Graham. Yes.
Which will have to be the last question of this round.
Thank you.
The question was, would you talk with them and report back to us?
Well, I can't. Yes, I will when I can.
Thank you, Senator Graham. Senator Shi.